Redditors with unstable exes. What's the craziest thing they did after you guys broke up? Serious, NSW. My ex knew my mother's work schedule. Hairdresser. She would go to her shop to get her hair cut every day until she had a male haircut, just so she could ask about me and if she could help us get back together. Assuming she was paying for those cuts every day, that sounds expensive. After a turbulent amount of emotional abuse, I finally had the balls to break it off and moved back to my hometown, hundreds of miles away. She kept on messaging me, telling me she needed me and that she had hurt herself because of it. Me being an ex-suicidal case took this serious and tried to help her with it. 5 minutes later it was outed as a lie, and another 5 minutes later I got an email with a picture of her wrist that was cut. Took a full 180 and removed her from my life permanently. I have a weird tendency to fall in with girls who threaten suicide when you get mad at them. I have no idea how it keeps happening. I don't frick around with it whatsoever anymore. If anyone at all tells me that they are going to kill or hurt themselves, I just call 911 and send them over. Frick it. She cut my wrist with a butcher knife, emptied my savings account and then wrote $2,500 in bad checks in exchange for cash. Pawned all of my stuff, stole all my photo albums including the only pictures of our daughter that died from SIDS. Proceeded to call my first sergeant every day to accuse me of physical abuse even when I hadn't seen her for days, and he knew that. Broke into my house and stole my son's heart medicine out of the fridge, then accused me of being irresponsible so I'd have to turn him over to her just so he could get his meds. Later, she signed an affidavit trading custody of him in exchange for my pickup truck. Seriously, after I started dating she climbed in through a window and cut my girlfriend's clothing up and stole all her money out of her purse. I could go on and on. She ended up in a mental hospital, and now is one step away from living in a van down by the river. I'm happily married for the last 15 years. We survived her crazy crap. I was the unstable ex many times. I would pester and call and guilt trip and insult. Then I started to see a therapist and I was put on medication and it helped me see how terribly I treated these ladies. I don't bother them anymore, but I would love to apologize and explain that the chemicals in my brain were not balanced and that I am super sorry for everything, but I can't, because I don't want to bother them. I've posted this before but I'll say it again. My ex thought I was sleeping with my best friend. I'm a chick. Best friend is a dude. So he set his apartment on fire and killed his cats. I don't think the fires killed the cats either. This was months after we broke up too, and I never slept with my best friend. People get trapped in their apartments and had to be rescued. Oh, this was a doozy. I end up breaking up with her because I find out that she is a coke addict and a stripper and has been sleeping around when not with me. She decides to tell me that she's pregnant with my child. For various reasons I knew this to be untrue, and told her that she can keep it. A few weeks later she comes back and accuses me of giving her chlamydia, also untrue, and threatens to tell all my friends that I'm a dirty blah 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 expletive and she hopes I rots in heck and my dong falls off. Luckily I had gone to the doctors immediately after leaving her butt and got tested for everything under the moon. Was completely clean. I offered to send her the paperwork to prove it and she stopped talking to me. Oh, and she punched me in the face twice. I know this'll probably get buried, but I'll give it a shot. This is the same guy, mind you. Where do I begin? 1. I left a work meeting early one day because I had an eye doctor's appointment. He found out about it and showed up at my house with a pregnancy test yelling about how I'm keeping his child from him. He didn't believe I went to the eye doctor. He thought I was at an OB or something. He wanted me to take the test but he wanted to be in the room when I took it so that he knew I didn't fake it. I called him crazy and told him to leave. He told me he was going to call the cops on me and have me arrested for slander. And then he told me he was going to get a copy of my medical records from the police station. 2. I moved away and he started telling everyone I died. He said that I killed myself after I miscarried our child. 3. I found a listing on Craigslist casual encounters under women seeking women that said the person was a female that wanted pics of other girls. That's fine. Except for the picture used was one of me, in my underwear, at the ripe age of 16. I confronted him about it, since the picture had only gone to him. And he said that it was super easy to intercept pics like that and someone probably stole it to be a creep and get pics from girls. He said that since he's so good at IT that he can have them take it down. He claimed to crash all of Craigslist and track the IP of the poster to a small town about 45 minutes away from where I used to live. I don't know anyone who lives in that town. 4. Also throughout our relationship, he maintained a lie that he was schizophrenic and had 2 other personalities. One was a jester named Shaco, and yes he played LOL at the time, and another was a werewolf named Edwick. To summon either of them, I could just say hat trick and they would pop up, just like that. Gave my Xbox a shower complete with shampoo and conditioner, also threw my sunglasses away and called my mom telling I was a depressive drug user. Good times. She got pee drunk. Had her underage brother drive her to my parents' house on Christmas Eve. I was home for Christmas break. Followed me into the bathroom and tried to pull my dong out and begged me to frick her. I politely declined. Less than a year later she had a kid. Maybe she was already pregnant and trying to trap you with it. Glad you dodged that. My ex told a lot of lies to folks trying to make me look bad. Really transparent ones. For instance, at a lunch with her friends and my bro, he got arrested. Bro, oh really? Yes. He came to my work yesterday and made a scene about how he needed me back. Well, that's a lie. IT is not. I was there. Well, that's impressive considering that all this week he's been in Texas fricking his new girlfriend. I live in Canada. Got pregnant and told me it was mine. Went through the entire process, moral dilemma and eventually the abortion together. Then, after a couple weeks her boyfriend knocked on my door, upset. As we talked it through and did the math, it became very clear that we aborted his child. Holy smokes man. That's a heavy one. My sister is working with a girl who is faking to be engaged to mess with her ex-boyfriend. She is putting it all over social media so her boyfriend isn't the only one who is thinking she is engaged. She is supposed to break off the engagement in a month. Ex-wife made a FB account for her cat after we had separated. Found out from a friend so I logged in to see the ridiculousness of it all. The cat had me blocked. Mr. Binkles always hated you. Falsely accused my 10-year-old brother of molesting our, at the time, 2-year-old son. Charges filed. The whole 9. There was no evidence to support the allegations. It was all bulls. But by refusing counseling she was able to keep the restraining order in place. To this day, 10 years later, my brother and son cannot be anywhere together. It's sad that she can't see that she is only hurting your son by depriving H of the relationship with your brother. So fricked up. My so and I were freshmen in college at the same university when we split. She reported me to the dean of students for assaulting and stalking her, neither of which I did. I got called to the dean's office later that week and I told him my side of the story. They launched an investigation into the matter and expelled her for reporting false information. Okay, was engaged to someone with a documented mental condition, albeit not until after we broke up. Anyway, she got engaged and married to a different guy within 18 months, and then during an argument, ran him over with her car. Guess you can say I dodged a Ford Focus. Destroyed everything in my house, bruised herself up, went to the police station, told cops I beat her. My parents were on vacation in Alaska so I had no one to bail me out. Fortunately my friends put together some money and got me out. I had to go to a 6-month domestic violence class with people who look like they really beat the crap out of their wives. They had pictures on the wall of women with their noses broken, black eyes, and bloodied up. Whole thing cost me a ton of money but my case was thrown out and I was given custody of my son. Yay for happy ending. Dated Czech girl only for a few months. Broke up with her. One of the smoothest breakups honestly. Few weeks later she shows up at a party, grabs me by the neck, points a gun at my head and keeps shouting profanities in her language. Oh, and I once saw her throw a guy 3 meters through the air. Probably should have taken that as a warning sign. 3 meters is 10 feet in the air the entire time. Either the dude was light as frick or homegirl is She-Hulk. This thread is really making me appreciate my girlfriend being not crazy. I'm going to call her and tell her how much I love her. If she doesn't answer, call her 50 more times. Then she'll know how much you really care. Drove to my mom's house. It was summer during college, so I was staying there and stood in the driveway and screamed for half an hour. There was a block party happening at the time. Different one met a drug dealer, got hooked on pills and became his kept woman for a while. But she left him, cleaned up and went through NA. Had a baby and got married unhappily. A baby and an unhappy marriage is about on par for your early 30s, I reckon. Edit. Just checked FB. They got divorced and are fighting for custody. Even more on par for the early 30s. Nothing too drastic outside the whole I might be pregnant bulls. But she did offer me a wee the next Christmas. This was 2007. If I stayed with her. Still not sure if I should have held out for it. I was the unstable ex. She was my first relationship. Then she dumped me after a few weeks by telling me she was having feelings for another girl. I went full neckbird and basically spent the next year trying futilely to win her back. Then she started dating my male friend, which didn't help matters at all. High school kids. She would constantly call me, ask why we don't hang out or talk anymore. Then she would immediately ask if I have kissed or had sex with anyone yet. When I got a new girlfriend, she tried to start some crap and actually message her new GF through Facebook. That in turn caused my ex to come up to the bar I was hanging out at in her PJs and try to drag me outside. I had to threaten her with security removing her to get her to stop. She's left me alone for the most part since then. Stalked the new guy I was dating. Then stalked me. Showed up to my house at 7 AM. I worked second shift over a week straight. Forced his way into my apartment and gave me a speech about why I shouldn't date the new guy and should date him instead again. Followed new guy to my place from his favorite bar. Left a dozen roses by my door that night. Showed up to my apartment after being told by police to stop. I called the cops. He tells them everything he owns that I have, as it was given to me at the time of the breakup. He eventually admits there were gifts, but all he wants is the dog's flea shampoo. Okay, so I date a twin and my best friend was dating her sister, so I got the inside scoop on everything. So he heard she was gonna break up with him and decided to break up with her first. He definitely deserved to be broken up with, but that's way too much to go into. Anyways, breaks up with her, asks her out an hour later. She says no, threatens to kill himself. Later that night she gets a text saying check your mailbox. In it's flowers and a huge note, this is about 10:30. For the next 2 months threatens to kill himself. TXTS her mom, friends, sister, everybody our age, some people's moms, and gives them pages of messages saying that he needs her in his life and what can he do to fix it and whatnot. Says he wants to kill himself and life is nothing without her. He TXTS me this too, but I cut him after the second message when I realized he was copy and pasting these whole pages of TXTS and sending them to me. 3 months afterward she starts talking to someone and it gets around to this guy that he had tried to pay someone $50 to beat him up. Oh, and they had to block him from my GFS phone, his ex-GF, and their mom because of how many messages he was sending. There's no describing it. Now, 7 months later he still TXTS me every once in a while saying he can't sleep and needs her and wants her back. Well, I'll first state that we lived together prior to our demise. She cheated after 6 years of being together. So about a month after we broke it off I started noticing subtle differences in my house. Like a chair moved or a lamp on, that sort of thing. I really didn't think anything of it because, well, I'm a man and tend to forget to turn off lights, push chairs in. It got to the point where I was really starting to notice things had been moved. That's just part 1 of the craziness. My backsliding glass door doesn't lock. She was coming in while I was gone to mess with stuff. Part 2 was I started to have a faint smell throughout the house. Nothing too much, just kind of a funk. Well, after a few months it got worse and worse and worse. So I decided to investigate. Maybe a rat or squirrel had died in the attic. I go up, check, no dead animals. I finally pinpoint the smell. It was coming from an AC vent. Open it and bam. Literally 40 bloody moldy tampons were in the vent. Throw away for obvious reasons. Though I'm sure I'm late to the party. Sorry for choppy sentences and whatnot. I'll format in the morning if there's any need. He wasn't ever really my boyfriend. He was a friend who fell in love with me. The TLDR of it is that after I got him to leave me alone, After a fist fight, he started dating another girl. I noticed her slumping about, cringing and hunching. I spoke to her and she confided in me of his abuse. I told her that she didn't need to put up with his abuse, that she had me. He threatened to kill me, and she left him because of this. A day later she went to a mutual friend's house to tell him to leave me alone. He wanted me to go as well, but I refused. He shot and killed her, then himself, because I didn't show up, because she didn't listen when I told her not to go, because I didn't text her fast enough, because I denied him. I owe my life to her and I will never be able to repay her. TL. DR. Murder suicide. Survivor's guilt. High school. Bombarded my home phone with calls. I didn't have a cell phone then, and when I told my mom not to pick up, he cussed off my mom on voicemail, then sent long emails detailing how I'll get AIDS. Do you still have the emails? You might be able to sell them as short stories. This will be extremely buried. He faked his own kidnapping. He sent me a text that he had been kidnapped and to come meet him at the park. I didn't know where said park was, so I called the county sheriff, my uncle's brother, and he told me to stay where I was and ignore him. About 4 hours later I got a call from the police. They had him. He had wrapped his head in duct tape, wrote my phone number on it, taken his clothes off, and tied himself to a park bench. In February, in the north, it was freezing. When I didn't show up after a few hours, he went to a local house and told them to call me. They called the police. Ex-wife left me, took my daughter to the opposite end of the country, falsely accused me of child abuse, and tried to get a restraining order on me. She thought it would be easier than suing for custody and just getting a divorce. Instead, judge granted me fully custody, and she's barely allowed to see my daughter now. Cut all communication, moved on, and started seeing other people. That's just nuts. How are we supposed to get back together and live happily ever after while she's off sleeping with other dudes? She's insane. Soft sobbing. He confessed to me that he had cheated on me with his ex and that he got her pregnant. I couldn't believe it, so I told him this relationship was no more. He began to cry hysterically, apologizing and begging me to have mercy on him. I insisted he drop me off home and that I never wanted to see him again. This is where he proceeded to bang his head against the wheel and the horn went off each time he banged his head against it. Passing people would look over confused as I was getting my things ready to leave. I was so embarrassed. Then he started to fake a seizure while crying and begging me to stay with him, all with the spit coming out of his mouth and violent shaking, repeating "take me back, bang, take me back, bang, take me back" for about a good 3 minutes. He had a history of craziness like this before, so this was just another show. He doesn't have a problem with seizures, by the way. I opened the car door and walked away heartbroken that I was cheated on, but relieved that I finally got away from him and that I wasn't the one who ended up pregnant. The whole deal was ugly, sad and disturbing. I could tell she was a bit unstable. As soon as she started dating me and found out I had $, she started giving a lot less shoots about her studies. She started to notice my disinterest because of that. I like smart women, and she started to say that she would kill herself if I broke up with her and that she wants my baby. At the time, this was the last thing I wanted. After breaking up with her, she proposed to me in front of most of my friends and I told her no, and referenced the whole breaking up thing that happened recently. She lost it for the following years before I left town. Tell lies to anyone who knew me that I was a terrible person, hurting her, sexual abuse, etc. Would call me on my birthday on different numbers and yell "frick you." Blamed me for everything that went wrong in her life, from her grades to family problems, mental issues, and eating problems. Would message me to let me know about her new relationships. Threaten my family if they were younger and or smaller than her. Not nearly as bad as other Redditor's exes, but she was a terribly obnoxious ex that was out to ruin my life. I do hope she is doing better and has her life under control. She did message me late last year saying roughly all my problems are your fault, so I am just going to stop thinking about you. My therapist told me to good night. Frick you. So I guess that is an improvement. Before I came out, I did the whole trying to be straight thing since I grew up active in ministry and I was dating the pastor's daughter in my late teens. When we broke up, she showed up at my house with a friend. I let them in to talk but told her I had somewhere to go, and when she didn't want to leave, I said, "Listen, I have to shower and leave. We've talked. We'll see each other at church, but I gotta go, and hit the shower. While I was in there, she came in the bathroom, proceeded to undress and join me in the shower, and of course, things happened. But after it was over, when I said no, this doesn't mean we're getting back together, she runs to her dad and tells her family I raped her. Had it not been for the mutual friend attesting to the fact that she came into the bathroom and got in the shower with me, and her older brother telling them that he'd known we were sexually active and that it was always consensual, I could have ended up with an even more effed up life. But as it stood, I was asked to leave the church and my sins exposed to everyone. My ex-wife ordered 50 pizzas to my apartment when she found out my new girlfriend was there. We kept and paid for 2 and sent the rest back. The delivery guys were not amused. I had an ex make a copy of my house key unbeknownst to me. When we broke up, she came to my house while I was working, did my laundry, cleaned and bought me groceries, all of which she never did while we were together. I didn't acknowledge it. I didn't change my locks for a week though to see if she'd do it again. No luck. Sent a letter to my mom explaining what a bad person I was. I should note that I was entirely honest during the relationship. When I first realized I didn't want to be in it anymore, I said clearly, firmly, and with complete politeness that it wasn't working for me anymore and that I was sorry, but I could not continue the relationship. She told me that because I had once said I loved her, I had to continue loving her forever. I explained that's not how I felt any longer, and that when I had told her that I truly did love her, she explained that you can't ever stop loving somebody, that once you love them that's it, and I said I disagree. Anyway, that was the main point of contention. She sent a handwritten 8-page, single-spaced, college-ruled letter to my mom, telling her all the horrible things I'd done and what a bad person I was. My mom read the first 2 sentences and tossed it in the trash, told me I needed to have better taste in women, and that I'd dodge a bullet. Years later, still angry, she posted every personal AIMICQ conversation and email conversation we'd ever had on a blog with my name in it, and then spammed the heck out of it to people that work with me, knew me personally, etc. Lots of embarrassing things you say over ICQAIM in the middle of the night when you're trying to jerk off to a girl who's sending you nude pics. Lots of those things are still used by friends as inside jokes, but none of it made me want to be with her again, so not sure what our end goal was. Dated a girl for about 1.5 years. I was her first serious boyfriend, and she clinged hard to me. About a month before we broke up, she moved 4 houses down the alley from me. This proved to be too much for me, and I broke up with her after a silly fight. Predictably, she was very upset. She wanted me back, wanted to maintain a friendship at the least, but I told her I just needed some space. She never gave me any. I would find notes on my car windshield every morning, returned gifts I bought her on my doorstep, texts, messages, etc. After a few weeks, things seemed to be okay, but then she started the whole "you ruined my life" bit, with her messages becoming increasingly rude. I decided I wanted nothing at all to do with her, and I wanted my possessions she still had back. The main thing of mine she still had was a red oak turntable stand I designed and built in shop class in high school. I lent it to her temporarily until she had a better setup for her record player. She refused to return it and then told me she had smashed it up. I was running low on options on how to get it back, to the point that my mother called her to ask her to return my stuff. No dice. She swore and yelled at my mom. Up to this point, I had held my cool dealing with this emotional wreck. Finally, I cracked. I yelled at her on the phone. My roommates and I waited for her to come home from work. Upon seeing us waiting at her door, she ran away. I chased her down and got in her face, demanding my table back. She refused again and kept walking towards the nearby train station. She then started yelling, "He's trying to rape me. Rape. Rape." This was during peak hours. I left immediately because frick that. My roommate was able to contact her later that evening and get my crap back and calm her down. So all was cool, until the next morning. Whilst sitting in my car at a red light, she approached my vehicle, started screaming at me, and proceeded to kick my car door with her boots on, and tried to smash my window with the handle of an umbrella. I got out and she stepped back. Before I could even really say or do anything, the light turned green. So I got back in and sped off. I was furious. She texted me when I arrived at work apologizing. I reported the incident to the police as a precaution. She later texted me that week telling me she was trying to kill herself. I told her to get help and that was the last thing I ever said to her. 2 months later, the casing around my side view mirror had been broken off my car overnight, likely her doing. She has since moved back to her hometown. She could never keep a job or a place when she lived here, and this incident also lost her a lot of friends. I know she is a Redditor and could possibly read this. If she is, I hope she can understand how much that fricked me up, and that she is definitely the craziest person I've ever met. Stabbed out the tires on my car, smashed out the windows, and shat on the driver's seat at about noon while screaming about me cheating on her while I was at work, parked in front of a camera. There were many witnesses and my first notification was the police coming in and asking me to come outside. She was pissed off because I started sleeping with someone else 2 days after we broke up. She went to jail for a month or so because she was a B to the judge. My boss at work loaned me a car while mine was getting sorted. The insurance paid me off pretty well for the damage. Her parents cut me a check that was entirely too large for the damage, and I've never spoken to her since. She's good friends with my sister and apparently burned little effigies to try and cause me some kinda white girl voodoo pain. There are a lot of good reasons for why I broke up with her. Fricked like 5 dudes in 3 days, asked me to take her back via text, then accused me of trying to murder her and rape her. I hear she's a psychiatrist. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.